Welcome to the discussion on our series about Indian democracy. We all know that the strength of democratic institutions depend on the character of the political leadership. In many countries of Asia and Africa, after the Second World War, citizens got the right to choose their leaders. That's the basis of any democracy anywhere. It means those elected by the people can only rule over the people. However, in many countries, the democratic edifice collapsed sooner than later because those who were in power initially did not establish strong democratic institutions. Look at the state of Pakistan, which got independence along with our country, but sooner than later, it failed as a democratic nation and military took over the reins of power. In India, Jawaharlal Nehru, the first prime minister, was a staunch follower of democratic principles. He made efforts to set up some democratic institutions, and because he was in power for about 17 years, democratic institutions got a solid foundation. But after Nehru, these institutions began to fray. Even when his daughter, Indira Gandhi, tightened her grip over the party and the government, the Indian institution began fraying at the seams. And ever since, many of our institutions are decaying, slowly but distinctly for everyone to see. What is the current state of many of our democratic institutions? And what should be done to nurse them back to good health? To discuss this, we have with us Professor Ajay K Mehra, a retired professor of political science in Delhi University. Professor Mehra has been a distinguished scholar, has written many books, has traveled abroad extensively to participate seminars in different parts of the world. After his retirement as a principal of a college in Delhi University, Professor Mehra served as the Atal Bihari Vajpayee Fellow at the Nehru Memorial Museum and Library for 2 years, from 2019 to 2021. We are happy to welcome Professor Mehra today to discuss some of the major issues facing the country. Welcome, Professor Mehra.
Thank you, Professor Mehra. Thank you very much.
Professor Mehra, today almost all newspapers front page the story of the Supreme Court of India, a bench of the Supreme Court of India, raising questions about the appointment of the chief election commissioners. SC bench says that since 2004, no CEC has enjoyed a full term. It's a state of musical chairs. In fact, they come and go. Justice K M Joseph, who is heading the bench, in fact remarked, UPA government got 6 CECs in 8 years. And the India government has now 8 CECs in 7 years. Compare this to the 1950s and 60s, when we had almost every CEC enjoyed at least 5 to 6 years term. The Election Commission appears to function in a very ad hoc fashion. As an expert in this field, how do you look at the concerns raised by the Supreme Court?
Well, I would say that concerns are very genuine, and these concerns have been expressed across the board for various institutions in the country, including the Election Commission, as the bench has said. Even if you look at, say, the Supreme Court of India, the pattern has not been very satisfying, because many of Chief Justices had very, very short term. And as far as there, of course, it is the collegium that appoints judges, and it goes entirely by seniority. So it's a different case altogether. But in the case of the Election Commission of India, it is the government which appoints an election commissioner. Now, since we have a multi-member, a three-member at the moment election commission, I don't know whether it is possible. It should be possible, actually, to very carefully look at the CV of the person being appointed as the election commissioner, and so that when that person comes to becoming the chief election commissioner, and there also it rotates entirely by seniority, reaches the stage of becoming the chief election commissioner, he or she should have at least a 2-year tenure, as has been done in several of the institutions where tenures have been fixed, like in CBI and so on and so forth.
Justice Kiren Joseph, in fact, drew attention to someone like T N Seshan. He gave the example. He says many of these CECs appear to be men of no skeleton. CC Seshan, in fact, transformed the position of Chief Election Commissioner from a bumbling official to someone who cracked the whip, and the mightiest of politicians obeyed the commands. He transformed that institution by the strength of his character. That's what Justice Joseph said. And that's why he said people like that only come once in a while. Do you agree with this assessment of Mr. Seshan?
You see, what happens is that once a solid tradition has been laid out, like in your opening remarks, you talked about Nehru, who for 17 years nurtured, very carefully tended each of the institutions, which survived despite a kind of onslaught from his own daughter on several of the institutions. Similarly, in any institution, if there is effective, efficient, non-partisan head, she or he leaves behind a tradition which would not be easy to trample upon. In fact, Seshan indeed laid very healthy traditions for the Chief Election Commissioner and for the Election Commission of India. But, if you see after that, a few of the Chief Election Commissioners who followed him have also followed his footsteps. So that, that is very, very important, that the person selected should have those qualities of leadership where he or she respects the institutions and does not buckle down under various kinds of extraneous pressures.
Well, the Supreme Court bench raised another concern, that Article 324 of the Indian Constitution stipulated the role of the CEC and the ECs, election commissioners. But it did not specify what would be the process through which they would be selected. In fact, it left it to Parliament to do that. And that was explicitly stated in that constitutional provision. But in the last 72 years, from the days of Jawaharlal Nehru to the days of Narendra Modi, no government has actually passed a law in Parliament stipulating how the CECs and ECs would be selected, would be appointed. So there is a kind of loud thinking that CECs and ECs should be appointed in the same way that the CBI Director or Lokpal are appointed. It should be Prime Minister, Leader of the Opposition, and the Chief Justice of India. Do you think this is a composition which should serve better purpose insofar as selecting the election commissioners of the country?
Well, I would, I would not say that it's a kind of a faulty proposition or a wrong proposition. That a set of as far as possible bipartisan, non-partisan body is created for such selections. Now, what should be the constitution of that, selecting body is a question that needs, further debate, because that question has arisen for a number of democratic institutions. For example, it came up for CBI. It came up much earlier, if you remember the debates on the office of governor. There was a time when it was debated that there should be some kind of a body that should at least prepare a panel from which governors to various states should be appointed, so that the person is non-partisan. So that has not happened, and we have seen partisanship during the time of Indira Gandhi, during the time of Rajiv Gandhi, during the current regime also. But there is a question. That we need to ask: that in how many of such bodies should the Chief Justice of India be a party to selection? Whether that is eventually going to impact the office of the Chief Justice of India or not is a question that came to my mind when I read this news.
So tell me, how has it played out? CBI Director, since 1998, of course, Supreme Court intervened and a fixed term of 2 years that was given. But then in 2014, when the Lokpal Act was created, again, the same formula was worked out that the Leader of Opposition, Prime Minister, and CJI would select the CBI Director. How has it been the performance of the CBI Director since 2014, if you look at a broad spectrum view in the last 8 years?
Actually, if you look at the appointments of CBI Directors since, Anil Sinha, a very distinguished IPS officer, was the first CBI Director to be selected and appointed through this mechanism of Prime Minister, CJI, and the Leader of Opposition sitting together and appointing for 2 years. And soon after that, there was still meddling, and we have seen let's not take names, but we have seen meddling in such a bad way that CBI came out as a very, very poor institutions of this country. And if there is such kind of meddling, there is such kind of fracas between senior CBI officers in the full public view, then, CBI, we all know, is already politicized. But if that kind of thing happen, its deterioration further is, going to be very, very fast.
You are referring to, I think, the Alok Verma Rajesh
Yes,
Asthana
yes,
report,
yes, 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 of
that
course. Yeah.
how that's something. Was the process of appointment there wrong, or was it the intention of the government of the day, which wanted a certain officer, Rakesh Asthana, but that was not agreed to by the Chief Justice of India and the leader of the opposition. And that actually set in motion a kind of a situation where Rakesh Asthana, as special director, was snapping at the CBI director, undermining his authority. That led to the open conflict there. So that is something which, of course, created this major issue. But do you think the you can fault the system of appointment there?
No, I'm not faulting the system of appointment. What I'm saying is that if the intention, you also mentioned political leadership, if the intention of the political leadership is not, in a democratic frame, is as healthy as the institution is sought to be created, then this kind of aberration happens. We have already described each and every thing that happened at that stage in that drama, so I need not say about it. But if the intentions of the political leadership was fine, that okay, we have already created a body which is going to select according to seniority, according to efficiency, and so on and so forth. Let us not meddle in. And I mean, how favorite Rakesh Asthana was of the current regime came out clearly that he was giving extension and brought as Delhi Police Commissioner. Whether it really improves policing, whether we are talking about general policing or we are talking about special policing of the kind that CBI does.
Law Minister Kiren Rijiju the other day said that the CBI is no more a cased parrot. Remember that famous indictment by the Supreme Court in 2013,
of course,
when the Congress was in power and the UPA was in power that time. Justice Lodha described it as CBI as a cased parrot. And that was, and he says but after 2014, CBI is no more a cased parrot. It was under the Congress, under the UPA, but not under the NDA. How do you react to this statement of Kiren Rijiju?
Well, I totally reject that statement. I think this kind of whitewashing does not help. In fact, when you describe the kind of fracas that happened between Alok Verma and Rakesh Asthana, it clearly shows that interference goes on. The second important thing to be looked at is that recently, I think about 2 or 3 weeks back, the Indian Express came out, with the analysis of data that political misuse of CBI has been there with the UPA. It didn't talk of Indira Gandhi time, when also it happens. It talked about the UPA period and it talked about the NDA period, and it has gone up manifold. And most of the persons who have been, arrested by or against whom the CBI has started various kinds of actions, they belong to the opposition parties or critics or so on and so forth. So it's not a clean statement, and I won't agree with it. The government, the UPA did it. NDA should have stopped it, but they have gone many yards ahead, many miles ahead.
Would you like to cite some examples apart from this Alok Verma issue to say that the CBI has not worked in an autonomous fashion?
Well, you see, You see, there, soon after, one thing is very clear, that CBI has been extensively used against the leadership of the AAP and Aam Aadmi Party. And this has started with, Rajendra Kumar, who was, I think, Principal Secretary to NCT Government of Delhi. I don't know what happened to that. Some people told me in the police that no, Rajendra Kumar had actually done a lot of wrong things. I don't know about it, so I cannot comment on that. But Satyendra Jain is there. There have been investigations against Manish Sisodia, and now this liquor licensing case, which is being blown out of proportions, is also going around. The case of Chidambaram and his son, and the way the raids were carried out, the way he was incarcerated, and the way, the kinds of sections that were imposed that made getting bail difficult. Considering that Chidambaram himself is a senior advocate at the Supreme Court and a very renowned lawyer. I will not comment whether he is upright, he is not upright. I don't want to go into that question. But certainly, the way he was arrested, it clearly showed there was a bias, because after that, we haven't heard about that case. What is CBI doing? And if Chidambaram was really wrong, he should have been, convicted. He has not been convicted.
Well, that's the current reality. But if you look at the same accusation can be made against the Congress. Forget about
yes, of course.
Earlier period, even the last 10 years, 2004 to 2014, when it came to power, did it misuse the office of the CBI or other investigative agencies?
Of course they did. Of course they did. I have not listed many instances, but they certainly did. In fact, you see, since 2004, 72 key leaders were arrested by the CBI during UPA, of which 43 were from the opposition. So the UPA started it, no doubt about it. But NBA since 2014 has instituted cases against 118 opposition leaders through the CBI. So that clearly shows that it was there. We are not, you see, when we are speaking here, we are not speaking as partisan people, as experts. We have to look across the political spectrum, and each and every leader, each and every government which does it is wrong.
So today, because we were talking about the tenure, the Supreme Court bench said the tenures have been short, that from 6 years in 50s, 60s, CBI Director is now come down to a few months and few days, and 72 days, one CBI Director had a period of tenure. So what has happened that the government of India, in fact, passed a law last year in 2021 saying that we will increase the CBI directors' tenure and also that of the ED directors to 5 years. But the game plan is that in that 5 years, 2 years is the stipulated period, that compulsorily 2 years that every government has to follow about the rule about appointing the CBI director. But beyond the 2 years, every year it would be on the satisfaction of the government to give yearly extension. So some say this is a means by which it is saying that if you are pliable, you get 1 more year extension. If you are more pliable, you get another year of extension. If you are completely bending over backwards, you get extension till 5 years. Is this interpretation right?
I think so. It's absolutely right, because we have to remember when the CBI directors tenure was fixed at 2 years, then there was also that stipulation still exists that the CBI director can be removed only by the same committee that has appointed it. He or she cannot be removed without the same committee sitting together and deciding that yes, this person is not efficient and our assessment was wrong and the person should be removed. But government, without any committee, any such bipartisan committee or body that has been created, doing this, it will give the government a whip through which it will keep such officers, such heads of institutions under control and expect them to do what they want to do.
Tell me this about the NIA, National Investigative Agency, that was created, I think, in 2008 to deal with the terrorist activities. But increasingly, it's thought of being used as kind of a federal police, and now the government is thinking that they have their setups, brands in different state capitals. They want it compulsorily in all state capitals, and which would possibly override the authority of the state police as and when that situation so demands. So how do you see this development about the NIA, National Investigative Agency?
You see, we will have to, put in two perspectives. One, the larger perspective of Indian federalism and the focused perspective of the institution that we are talking about. Now, and of course, the third dimension I must also mention, that is the political processes of the current time. If we look at the division of power, if you look at the way the constitution makers have given the police and public order to the states to implement. First time it was the center's role was seen to be important, not to override, but to manipulate the whatever federal police organization they had was during the emergency when Indira Gandhi bought 42nd Amendment. But there is an interesting dimension to it as it moves further. When the Janata government brought the 44th Amendment in 78, they did not alter that part at all. We have to look at the 44th Amendment very, very carefully because it retained a lot of things that were not undone, that were done by Indira Gandhi in 46th Amendment. So, somewhere in the political class, this thinking is there that the union government has to have certain role in policing what kind of, but not very much interference has taken place, I must say that. So that dimension comes out very clearly that the current government sees that the union government has to have a stronger role because they have been, apart from other agenda that they have declared to be part of their scheme, they have also said that national security has been put under danger over the decades and so on and so forth. So we must have a strong police organization and so on and so forth. I don't know whether you have seen, that Niti Aayog several years back when what's his name?
Debroy.
When Debroy was a member, they had created a paper which said it should go to concurrent list, right? And that is, he himself wrote an article lately in the Indian Express, again pushing that idea. And that idea is there on the platform. And beyond that, now comes the NIA having its stations in each state. Now that you have to also link, you have to look at the NIA Act. Generally it's fine, I won't say there is any problem with it, until we look at the section 6(5) of the, not 65, 6 and under bracket 5 of the NIA Act, under which the Bhima Koregaon case was transferred from the Maharashtra police to the NIA. Now, the fear came after the BJP could not form the government there after 2019 election. So the fear was that maybe there will be some. So, you know, I mean, this is an international tendency to create a category of imagined enemies to put, you know, your political support base further, increase it and so on and so forth. So a new category was created called urban Naxal. Anyone can be called urban Naxal. You can be called an urban Naxal. I can be. I have books on and by Marx. I have books. You know, I have written extensively on Naxalism. You know it. I have books on Naxalism. I can be put behind the bars by saying that, look, this fellow is an urban Naxal. He is Naxalism. So the you know.
Thank you, Prof. Mehra. We could have continued discussion, but I think that time is running out.
I understand.
But it was certainly very valuable. I think the people who watched this program have immensely benefited from your years of experience and research on center-state relations, on the state of our democratic institution. Thank you again for just sparing your valuable time for our program. Watch out for another discussion on another significant issue another day. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.